Well, it's the final days of living tiny for me. I've lived here in this beautiful, lovely tiny house that I've been able to call home for the last year, and I'm super grateful for this experience. I'm feeling emotional even right now talking about it because a lot went into making this experience happen, from the design process to the internal dialogue that I was facing day to day. Should I live in a tiny house? Will my partner want to live in the tiny house? What if it ruins our relationship? Can Pluto go up and down this staircase? What if this is the wrong decision? What if I let go of everything I built downtown to go try living tiny and I absolutely hate it? These are all fears that almost kept me from choosing to have this experience. And I feel like my life is so much more enriched from taking that leap of faith. It's kind of surreal to be letting go of this experience right now and closing this chapter because I've just fully sunken into it in the last couple months. So I feel like I'm actually at my peak of this experience, but that's kind of how I am with all of my projects in life. Once I get my creative vision to life and it becomes a tangible physical thing, and I've had time to enjoy that project, something in me sparks, a new inspiration starts to cultivate, and I get the message that it's time to let this vision go and for it to support somebody else and for somebody else to now enjoy this experience that I've brought to life. So one of the fears that I had about going tiny was that it would have a negative impact on the relationship, and that sadly became a reality. We did really well with working together in a small space for as long as we could, but eventually not having separate space to literally not be seen by your partner when you're just needing your own internal process, that started to wear on us. Unless you were in the bathroom with the door shut, we could see each other from every angle of the house. I gotta give him credit though, he gave it his all. He really gave it his all and he did his best to sink into the experience. And he lived here for, I think, 8 months, which is a fair shot at tiny house living, I gotta say. And in the end, even though that space or the lack of space led to the demise of our relationship, it actually led to so much more growth, and our relationship is actually in a better space now with us living in separate homes. Although the long-term plan and vision is to come back together and live in a home together and raise a family, we're really enjoying this separate space. And I honestly think being in such a small space in the tiny house is what pushed us to create that experience for us. So although it was kind of a challenge and a fear and a negative thing at first, it really turned out to be a gift. My intention to go tiny wasn't so much about living in a tiny house. Yeah, I wanted to try minimalism and I wanted to downsize my belongings and just have an experience-rich life. So that was part of the reason that drew me towards this experience. But ultimately, it was the creative vision of building a tiny house and expressing this exact design and color palette that was cultivating in my mind and that I knew I had to create. So I want to be super clear that that's what drove me to this experience, because for you, it might be freedom, it might be security. There's different reasons that people feel so inspired to live this life, and I want to be clear on what my intention was so that helps you to discern if it's an experience that's best for you or not. As a creative entrepreneur, I'm kind of always riding this wave of creativity peaks and divots, and right now I'm definitely in a creative peak. And this tiny house property is beautiful. I absolutely love it, but I've kind of done all the projects that there are to do around here. I'm ready to create something. So using this opportunity to move back into my house downtown, I now have an abundance of projects to work on. And that's just kind of how I work in life. I do one-on-one coaching and I run groups, and that fulfills me on a service level, being of service. But I've learned over the last few years that I have to also honor my own internal creative desires and inspirations. And when I balance being of service and balance my own creative passions, that's when I'm most aligned and most happy. So if you're considering moving into a tiny house, you're most likely going to need to leave the downtown core, because most space you'll find for a tiny house is in a rural property that has some form of land that is likely going to be quite difficult to find in a downtown area. So for me, I thought that some of my values were going to change from downtown. Like, I love going to a coffee shop and reading for the day, or biking or rollerblading to a park. And I was like, oh, that's okay. Like, I'll make coffee at home and there's hikes and different nature spots out here. So I just thought my values would shift as I shifted my experience. But I learned through this experience that that wasn't necessarily true. So if you're thinking about going tiny and that involves a move, get really clear on what the impact of that choice is going to be on the values you operate with on a day-to-day basis. Are you willing to let go of the coffee shops? Are you willing to be a longer distance from your friends and family? These are all really important things to think about because they're all likely things that won't change just by you moving locations. I love to gather people. I love an opportunity for new friends to meet and to be a community hub of sorts. So I'm excited to get back to my full-size house downtown and to create that community hub again. That said, I did have quite a few great gatherings out here. I had a gathering of 8 people on my birthday, and a couple times 5 of us would hang out here in the social loft, hanging out, cuddling, chatting, and Mr. Pluto would also be up there. In the end, anyone that came to visit here loved it. They often referred to it as a retreat or a getaway or an adult playground. I love all of those explanations, and that's exactly what this tiny house was for me throughout my journey as well. So if you're thinking about going tiny, get clear on your values. How will this impact your relationship? What do you have to let go of to create this? And what do you have to lose if you don't choose this, right? If you don't choose to follow that inner guidance and that nudge to create this new way of being for yourself, what do you have to lose? Because maybe there's more at risk for you to stay where you're at than to take this leap of faith. Doing a closing ceremony for me is something that I love to do with all big experiences in my life, just to be present to any emotions that want to come up. This was a very big emotional journey for me, from all the hiccups and headaches of getting it built and getting it moved onto the property, and then, the stuff that surfaced with my relationship and all the different internal processes I went through during the time I lived in the tiny house. So I just want to create a space where I can allow whatever needs to arise and to close this chapter with love and gratitude. So that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, and then the following day I'm going to be moving out of here. I want to end today's video by saying, follow your heart, let your inspiration lead you forward. It has led me to such beautiful, amazing places in my life, and this experience will live on forever in my memory as well as on my hard drive. And I'll see you guys next Sunday for an all-new video, but from a new location, so stay tuned.